Microfluidics has a lot of opportunity to be able to handle small amounts of liquids. And one of the most important liquids that people care about are liquids from us, for instance, blood. And so right now you go to the doctor, you get your slip, you go downstairs to the blood lab, they take 2 or 3 vacutainers of blood, each of which are about 10 milliliters, and then it goes to a central lab, they do some tests, and then you get either an automated call a few days later that says everything's fine, or you get a sheet in the mail, or you get something that says, oh, you should come back. Well, there's nothing fundamentally for most of the things we want to measure in blood that says that you need that much blood. And there's nothing fundamentally that says it should take 2 or 3 days to get that answer. And so one of the big areas of microfluidics has been to be able to manipulate and make measurements on small amounts of, for instance, blood. And that involves, instead of using microfluidics for basic science, it's using it for medicine. And one of the activities that I've been involved in is this Medical Electronic Device Realization Center, which we call the MEDRC. And this comes out of this interaction between people at MIT and microelectronics industry, medical device industry, and physicians, pharmaceuticals, so on and so forth. So the microelectronics industry has worked on things like watches, calculators, cell phones, computers, and every time that they set their sights on an area, it's completely different in 10 years. So it radically transforms. If you think about the first cell phone that I had in 1998 versus what used to be in my pocket a few minutes ago, it's completely different, right? It's much better, it's smaller, it's cheaper, it's faster, so on and so forth. Well, can we apply that to medicine? So can we do things smaller, faster, cheaper? Can we move medicine to the home, so on and so forth? And so what we're doing in the MEDRC is trying to bring together several different industry groups: microelectronics industry, medical device industry, pharmaceutical industry, biotech, with technologists at MIT, along with taking advantage of the extremely deep life science biomedical know-how of all the hospital network in the area. Okay, so we want Boston to be this hub of medical device development, and what is missing and what we're adding is that there's a lot of technologies that are almost good enough to transition to industry, but there's a little bit of a gap. And what we can do is identify, is to fill that gap. So for instance, there might be a medical need, and then we can intersect those needs with things that have enough market and that are far enough along that with, let's say, 3 years of effort at MIT, we can de-risk a technology enough that then it can be taken and commercialized by a company. And so the way we work at the MEDRC is actually a little bit different than most industrially sponsored research, which is that we have a visiting scientist or engineer from each company come and work on the project. And that's actually pretty interesting, and it avoids one common failure mode with industrially sponsored research, which is that the academics end up with a solution which is not commercializable because they made some decision early on in isolation that precludes, some taking that IP in-house. By having a visiting scientist there working with us every week, they're resident at MIT, you can make sure that the project development doesn't go off on a tangent that is irrelevant to the company. The other thing the visiting scientists do is they interact with each other from the other companies, and they also get to see whatever is going on at MIT. They know what's going on behind the firewall at their company that we don't have to know about, and they can sort of see things in this open environment of MIT and bring that back to the company. And so it's quite valuable, I think, for the company to do the research in this way. And from our point of view, it increases the likelihood that the things we develop will actually translate, commercialize, and change how medicine is done in 10 or 20 years. So that's what we're trying to do with this MEDRC. We work in a lot of different areas: minimally invasive monitors, wearable monitors, something over the ear that can measure vital signs, imaging, so can you make ultrasound so that you don't need a trained technician to do it, so you could do it at home, for instance. And one of the areas is in these what we call point-of-care devices that use microfluidics, so that maybe what you do is you go to the doctor and 15 minutes before your appointment, you go to the blood lab, they take a finger prick of blood, and then by the time you're seeing the physician, they have the results, and you can discuss right then and there, oh, your cholesterol is high, or oh, this liver enzyme looks bad, rather than having to get a call back, another visit, so on and so forth. There's a number of projects going on within the MEDRC. Like any academic project on campus, it's open. We're doing pre-competitive research, with the idea being that we generate IP, which is then taken by the company in-house to develop into a product. And across the areas of interest that we're working on, some of the things farthest along are wearable vital signs monitors. So you want to be able to monitor your vital signs in an ambulatory manner for a number of reasons. And so having something which is discreet, easy to wear, but can give you medically relevant data is something that we're working on. And the way we do things in the MEDRC, which is also a little bit different than traditional, is that we try to prototype very quickly with off-the-shelf components, go into the clinic, get a little bit of data, revise, and then at some point we will make a custom solution, if you will. But we don't want to spend 3 years designing some fancy thing and then realize that it is hard to use because the patients don't like it, so on and so forth. So having that tight collaboration not only with the industrial partner, but with the end user and the physician, for instance, if it's administered by a physician, is in the DNA of how these projects work. Medical devices is a large field. Bandages, scalpels are all medical devices. That's not what we're talking about. The MEDRC has the word electronics in it, and so we're looking for things that are electronics enabled. So where adding in computation, adding in sensing, adding in some element of electronics improves the device. And so that narrows the areas that are applicable, but it's still a broad area. Most of the big medical device companies have an increasing fraction of their portfolio is devices that include electronics. If you look, for instance, at an ultrasound machine today versus what it was 40 years ago, it's been altered a lot by microelectronics, and the question is, if we increase the collaboration even further between these different industries, what can we do next? So that's where we're going. But there's also companies or industries that you wouldn't necessarily consider initially, but that make perfect sense, like pharma and biotech. So right now, for most of these, the business model is to make a molecule that's a therapeutic. But in the future, there's opportunities to have, for instance, combination devices. So something that can both diagnose and treat, okay? Or something where you want to be able to set the dosage of your therapy, but you don't want to have that calibrated by the doctor, right? Oh, try this for 2 weeks, come back, I'll do another test, then we'll adjust it. Well, what if we could do that test at home? Maybe we could just adjust, maybe the patient or maybe the doctor could adjust it, but without having to see the patient, okay? So things like that are opportunities for pharma and biotech in the future. So on the industrial side, we're looking at medical device companies, microelectronics companies, and pharma biotech.